This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you. We got a banger today, folks. We have a lot to get to. We will check in on the Bombers as they get ready for the BC Lions on Thursday night. One day of practice, a closed practice today, walkthrough tomorrow, and then BC coming off the bye. Tough spot for the Bombers. Very similar to their tough spot in the standings right now. Darrin Bauming will jump on the program a little later on. We're also going to have Mike McIntyre join us shortly for, a little bit later on to get the latest on the Jets beat, as well as the newest members of the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, including the late, great Randy Turner, a great friend of the program, and, an individual that was friends to all of us in the media community, just one of the absolute classic dudes. We lost him far too early. He's going in. We'll talk about that group as well. And Alex Adams is going to join us at the bottom of the hour off the top to discuss the Olympic Games. Big win for Canada today in Olympic men's basketball. And listen, for everyone that's joining us on YouTube, you can see I'm sort of twisting my head right now because we're paying close attention to what is happening in this gold medal matchup with Canada and New Zealand. Canada, a massive underdog in this game. And Canada, a massive underdog, and they are hanging in as huge underdogs. Yesterday, I tweeted this out after the show, turned on the Olympic coverage and saw Canada shock the host French in the quarterfinal. Huge upset. They were plus 500 underdogs going into it and allowed them to get to the Olympic semifinals. Early this morning, they beat the Aussies. They were 9-1 underdogs. Australia minus 2,000 to win that game. And Canada, after rallied from being down 12-0 to win. And this team is just been absolutely incredible. Now, they are going up against an absolute juggernaut in the Kiwis of New Zealand, but they are right in this matchup right now. It looks like they're just about done. I think they're celebrating right now, and unfortunately, it looks like it'll be a silver medal for Canada. But I got to tell you, I am all in on rugby sevens. What an incredible run for our Canadian women. And listen, they gave the New Zealand, the Kiwis, all they could have in that final matchup, and a great silver medal for Canada in the women's rugby sevens. We'll touch on that in a second, but lots to get to today on the program. It's great to have you all with us as everything continues to come in fast and furious from the Olympic Games in Paris. Just before I bring in Michael Remis, a big thanks to the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. New edition of CFL 110 tomorrow on Winnipeg Sports Talk with myself and Jeff Hamilton. That's presented by Garage Living Winnipeg. Also want to thank Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Rollies Transfer, Consolidated Supply, and Manitoba Battery, Canadian Club, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, the Beer Can, along with Next Door and Hoagie Boys, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, the Gold Eyes, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Assiniboia Downs, and Breezy Bend, and we will get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Remo, what's going on?
I'm just watching this rugby sevens here. This has been pretty awesome. The gymnastics was on, so we've got Olympic fever here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Loving the time change it's on during the day. People watching along with us, but there's also some Bomber notes back at practice today. Closed practice ahead of Thursday's big game against BC, and a little Jets off-season rumors dropped by Frank Saravalli yesterday. I see people in chat mentioning that. So, basketball, we'll get into that with Alex. So, still a couple topics here. July 30, or if you're an Olympic, what, day 4 of the Olympics? Was it day 5? I lost track.
I getting up a little earlier than normal right now and diving right into it. As I said, the match this morning with Canada and Australia was just simply unbelievable. And I have to say, Charity Williams and Piper Logan, 2 breakout Olympic stars for folks like us that don't see this sport very often. First of all, the sport's amazing. If you tell me that there's a rugby sevens event somewhere, I will be at it. I will certainly watch it on television. Just a phenomenal breakneck pace, and the combination of the toughness and the physicality of football along with the fitness and speed and running, of something like soccer. I mean, it is quite a spectacle, and holy smokes, do we have a squad. We'll touch on that, just the significance of, what the women have done a little bit later on with Alex Adams. We caught up with him just a few minutes before we went on the air and the gold medal game happened. But everything else is happening. We got this huge women's soccer game tomorrow against Colombia, and won a medal yesterday in judo, which was very cool to see. A gold medal in judo. And I see Running Man in chat. And did anyone else see the interview they did with the judo gold medal this morning? Now, she is Japanese, but comes from, one of her parents is Canadian, and was talking about, living and training in Japan, but still feeling very Canadian, growing up in a Canadian household, as she described it, and had a funny little tidbit of it. Said that if she wasn't a judoka, she probably would be playing ice hockey because she grew up around it, because her dad was a massive Winnipeg Jets fan, Reem.
Yeah, Krista Deguchi, the first gold medal winner at the Olympics in judo. I feel like that's what it seems like every Canadian athlete saying, well, if I wasn't doing this, I'd be playing hockey. I posted an interview with Tyler Mizlachuk, who was supposed to compete in triathlon today. It got postponed. And he said the same thing, that, he was playing pretty high-level hockey and started doing cross-country and ended up in triathlon. So that's pretty cool. Winnipeg Jets coming up. Krista Deguchi name-dropping them in an interview at the Olympics. Awesome stuff there.
Yeah, that kind of caught my attention. But anyways, just quickly back to the women's rugby team. Charity Williams, who does she does a somersault every time she gets a try. She just puts the ball down and rolls over it. In that first game, Canada was down 12-0. Again, huge underdog. And right in the final seconds of the first half, she grabbed the ball and literally raced like 100 meters, and got the try, got the try. We'll keep on wanting to call it a touchdown. Basically with no time, and Canada all of a sudden down 12-7 at the half, and then they dominated the second half. But the girl on Canada that was the star of the game yesterday, that ended up scoring the winning try while literally being bended in half, is this Piper Logan, number 11. Dude, she has Janarian Grant speed. Like, the agility that she had and the juke moves, and then the minute she got space, I mean, she was pretty much gone. Anyways, I'm disappointed that the tournament's over already, because it was just so much fun to watch. But again, huge congratulations to our Canadian Olympic silver medalists, the rugby sevens team. And we're going to talk about this with Alex coming up in a few minutes, but all systems go for Canada in hoops. Big win over Australia this morning for our NBA stars, and they're now one win away from clinching the group, Reem, and moving on in a very nice position in the quarterfinals, in all likelihood on the opposite side of the draw than the U.S., and our dream gold medal matchup of Canada-USA very much alive after the first 2 games.
Yeah, that's awesome to see Canada beating Australia in a couple of sports, rugby sevens, basketball, and I believe 3-on-3 as well. The other day it was France. They had taken on in the soccer and the rugby sevens. So Canada, they're performing well. Basketball, first time back since 2000. They got all these NBA guys. Awesome to see. We're this close to us becoming a basketball nation. At least we are right now. So the highlights for sure: soccer, basketball, rugby sevens, swimming as well. We had the Summer McIntyre race during the show. So this is kind of a fun time to do a little watch along, a little show, do our regular show as well. But big news for Canada here a couple days in.
Yeah, and I got to figure this out. Maybe we'll pre-tape something for the second half of tomorrow's show, because I am already going to admit to being very distracted if we're going live while that Canada-Colombia game is on tomorrow. And Yin Vivian mentioning that Colombia has their big star, Linda Cascido, who's just 19. Now, Colombia is no joke. I mean, this is another very, very tough matchup, although the French were by far the favorites, and we all know what Canada did to them on the weekend. So anyways, a little bit more on the Olympics coming up, in particular our men's basketball team and women's soccer team with Alex Adams. Then we'll get into Mike McIntyre. And we should mention, listen, for people that are freaking out about the Bombers right now, I would suggest you go and read an article at 3 Down Nation from Ben Grant, who does the color for the Toronto Argonauts. Had the pleasure of being on a CFL show at a Hamilton with Ben a couple weeks ago. And Ben's going to join us tomorrow to talk about it. But it really does break down what's going on with the Blue Bombers. And, the offense has been moving the football. The turnovers have obviously killed them. But it really focuses in on the issues the Bomber offensive line is causing the offense overall, and just how much Zach Caleros has had to deal with being hit, being sacked, being pressured, and the correlation of the lack of those big plays and passing touchdowns for the Bombers, despite how much offense they've been putting up. So I would suggest you read that over the course of the next 24 hours. And we'll talk about it with Ben moving forward. But, Remo, you kind of teased right off the bat. It was funny seeing, what was going on X last night. There was certainly tons of posts that I was being tagged in involving Patrick Laine and the discussions as to where he goes next, and might he be in for a return to the Winnipeg Jets. But Frank Saravelli had a couple juicy nugs about just how aggressive the Jets were apparently in trying to get Marty Netcash out of Carolina.
Yeah, well, it came out yesterday. There were a couple signings yesterday around the NHL we didn't really get to. We're so focused on the Bombers and the Olympics. And the Blue Jackets had some business over the weekend, signing Kent Johnson, 3-year, $5.4 million contract. They signed RFA Marchenko to a 3-year deal. Brock Faber, I think it was right before the show, he signed a massive 8-year deal, $8.5 million AAV. Had a great Calder trophy nominated season. I mean, he was excellent last year. He's got one more year on his deal, so this is going to kick in after next season. But it was Marty Necas, the RFA, signing a 2-year, $13 million contract, $6.5 million AAV. And you were there were trade rumors surrounding him. Were they going to sign him long term? Were they going to trade him? And yes, Frank Saravelli was on DFO Rundown with Jason Greger, saying there were teams poking around, one of them being the Winnipeg Jets, and said the Jets had a pretty sizable offer on the table.
Play the clip, because I don't know. Let's hear it first, and then we can discuss what our takeaways in it from what Frank had to say.
There was another deal, I think, on the table. I don't know how seriously Carolina considered it, but I believe it was Winnipeg, and I think Winnipeg offered
Ehlers.
Nope. I think they offered Rutger McGroarty, Cole Perfetti, and some pick. I think it was some combination, if I have that correct. Perfetti, McGroarty, and a pick for Marty Necas. And that, well, either that wasn't getting it done either. Either didn't get it done or that wasn't a place he was going to sign.
All right, so there's Frank. Now there's a lot to take out of that. My reaction to that, and just sort of the way that he threw it out there, is that I'm sure at some point they probably talked about the rights to McGroarty. They may have talked about Perfetti and a pick. I have a hard time wrapping my head around an NHL GM in Kevin Cheveldayoff who has never really traded his prospects or his top young players, trading both McGroarty and Cole Perfetti for Marty Necas. It's interesting. I mean, so much of the conversation had been around, Nikolai Ehlers being the piece. And he said that wasn't the case. And maybe that's good for Ehlers fans that hope that there is more than 1 year left for him in Winnipeg and the prospect of potentially keeping him around. But I will tell you, I mean, if that deal happened, if we said, oh, Marty Necas is coming to Winnipeg, great. Who'd the Jets give up? Oh, Rutger McGroarty and Cole Perfetti in a pick. I think people would have freaked out.
Yeah, I mean, those are... Well, Rutger McGroarty, I was going to say, is a young player you think is going to be part of the Jets organization going forward, but that doesn't seem to be the case right now. You never know. Things may change. There was a Rutger sighting. I saw it on his Instagram story. Flow Hockey showing a picture of him at the World Junior camp. He's not on the team, but I guess supporting some of his friends there. Yeah, I like you think about the Jets giving up two young players. I don't know, Dubois for Roslovic and Laine. I don't know if it's kind of similar, but for them to give up on Perfetti, I guess you'd have to be confident you're getting Necas signed to a long-term deal. And Frank noting, maybe they couldn't get the contract done. And that's why I was so curious that he signed the 2-year deal, where we see a lot of other RFAs like Brock Faber yesterday and a couple others before Konechny signing, these long-term mega contracts.
Well, I mean, listen, apparently Carolina had been shopping Necas for a while. And another part of that report from Frank was that they had a deal done with the Buffalo Sabres, but Necas wasn't going to sign with Buffalo. Now, who knows? Maybe that was the case with Winnipeg. I mean, that was sort of the parameters of some sort of a deal, but he wasn't interested in signing long term. So they've, in some sense, sort of just kicked the can down the road. They get him signed on a 2-year deal, which will take him to the final year before he's an unrestricted free agent. And, if he wants to just go to arbitration, he can take a 1 or 2 year deal and then become a free agent. But he was a player that had been long rumored to be mentioned in trade talks around the league. And because of the uncertainty of, where Winnipeg was at, what the future of Nikolai Ehlers was, and, the want to get a productive top 6 player that they could potentially get signed for long term. I mean, you understand why the team was interested in him. But I will say this. I'm quite pleased that deal didn't happen if it was for the rights to Rutger McGroarty and Cole Perfetti and a pick. Then we'll get into this with Mike a little bit later on, because, I mean, with all the talk about Rutger, Cole Perfetti's contract, Patrick Laine, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about Nikolai Ehlers. And, Ehlers, of course, going into the final year of his contract with the Winnipeg Jets, will certainly be, if he does start the season with the Jets without a deal for next year, that is going to be kind of what we thought last year was going to be with the likes of Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck in their final year of their deals. I am hoping maybe we'll hear a little bit of traction when it comes to Ehlers and an extension at some point, although that in all likelihood I think is, like, unlike the Helly and Scheif deals that happened in training camp before the season even started, I would think that maybe Ehlers, would need, a little bit of time letting the season get underway and see how things go under Scott O'Neill, where he's at, how he's being used, all that. If that really is truly important to him, other than just getting what he feels that he's worth. But the Ehlers conversations certainly, while they may have been quiet right now in the middle of summer and died down, he's going to be the center of attention come training camp and into the season if there's no clarity on what his future is.
Yeah, we all remember Thanksgiving weekend last year. Really out of nowhere, the Scheifele-Hellebuck contracts coming down. And in that podcast, they're really the only insider podcast. Seems like everyone else has gone to the lake, but Frank, keeping it going here with the late July update, was Jason Greger mentioning on that podcast that he was surprised from what he's heard that Nikolai Ehlers didn't get moved yet, and maybe the offers weren't there, or maybe they make a last-ditch attempt to sign. You're talking about Perfetti. Everything we've heard about him coming from last week with Scott Billick on with us. You want to listen to that, saying that he seems like Perfetti's more likely to sign a longer-term extension, and we've talked about that on this show. Does he go for the 2-year bridge deal, or the Jets try to lock him up? So Perfetti RFA watch still happening. I think the Ehlers, going into his final season, that's going to be a topic here for a long time. But this is July 30. Not a lot of nuggets out there, and Frank putting out stuff on, I guess, trade rumors that didn't happen. Is that where we're at
the
here?
Funny thing is, you mentioned, kind of thought the Ehlers would have been moved from Dreger. Does that sound familiar to a year ago? Talking about Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck? I mean, that was the exact conversations that we were having and people were having around the hockey world, and we know how that finished up. So, as I say, a lot of these things, I think everything is still on the table. And, that's probably something that Kevin Cheveldaev would say, but I think because it's true. Cole Perfetti could sign a short-term deal, absolutely. They could ink him to a long-term deal, and I think those are being discussed right now. Ehlers could be traded. Ehlers could be around here for longer. All of that is possible right now. And, and I'm not sure we'll really get clarity. The Cole Perfetti thing, I would hope that they can get something done before training camp in September. But we've seen before, Remis, Laine, Kyle Connor, to name a couple, did miss part of training camp waiting for their deals when they were in similar situations to where Cole Perfetti is right now. So this very well could drag, at least for a guy like Cole that doesn't have a deal right now, could drag into training camp. And if we don't get anything from verified sources, if you will, on what happens with Nikolai Ehlers, just imagine the media scrum around Nick talking about his summer, where he's at, what discussions he's had with the Winnipeg Jets, and what his future is here in Winnipeg. And it may end up with, hey, I'm just here to play, looking forward to game one, and we'll see what happens. And unfortunately, we may just have to deal with that. But there's no doubt that when it comes to Winnipeg Jet players, Nikolai Ehlers, not only one of the most important players, most popular players, but also a guy that is going to be, have even more attention than normal on him, considering the fact that he will be playing out his deal and is staring unrestricted free agency down the barrel on July 1st of next year.
Yeah, you mentioned Cole Perfetti. His agent, Kurt Overhart, was also the agent of Jacob Trouba, who did miss training camp 1 year in a holdout. And I'm trying to think, what's Nikolai Ehlers' go-to going to be on day one of training camp? Well, my contract says I'm still on the Winnipeg Jets, so I'm here, right?
I'm here, aren't I?
I'm here. Is that what he's going to go with? Look, I play where I'm show up, where I'm not going to think about the future. I'll let my agent handle those discussions. There's so many options to pick from for Nikolai. I always wanted to do that, to, be in a scrum where there's a lot of questions about your future. You have to calm the waters. We'll see what Nikolai Ehlers. He's done this before. I'm sure he'll handle it nicely.
I'll tell you what would really make things interesting if his old pal Patrick Laine showed back up in Winnipeg around that time. If you missed the show yesterday, we were talking mostly Bombers with Jeff Hamilton. But even though Hammer is mostly on the football side of things right now, and Ken and Mike are on the daily beat of the Winnipeg Jets, Jeff has been there before, pretty plugged in. it was quite interesting to hear Hammer make a point of saying, hey, quickly, let's just talk about Patrick Laine here for a minute, mentioning that he believes it is a real possibility, and these next couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I think are going to be very, very interesting as it pertains to Laine, where he ends up, and the potential of the Winnipeg Jets, of the Jets being both his former team and his next team. And as I said, Remo, it's been a while since we've had something that has moved the needle so significantly than mentioning a possible reunion of one Patrick Laine and Peg City.
Posted the video on YouTube. I think it's getting picked up by Google search results because a lot of people searching for, Patrick Laine trade rumors. And yes, the conversation with you and Ken titled, "Should the Winnipeg Jets trade for Patrick Laine?" Almost 8,000 views. One of the more popular videos I've ever posted. So I can put it, I don't know if it's on like the Mount Rushmore of Winnipeg Jets topics yet, like nowhere near Dubois or the possibility of Barry Trotz coming to Winnipeg. But I think for Patrick Laine, there's a lot of people in there saying bring him home. A lot of people saying, hey, remember the scoring slumps that he would go through. Remember, maybe he wasn't the most committed to the team. But I think a lot of people do remember him sitting at the dot and ripping one-timers and scoring goals.
Yeah, I remember 80 goals before he turned 20.
Yeah.
I also remember that, everybody. I remember a guy pulling people out of his seats. And listen, he is a guy that has so much more to give. And I think, considering what he's been through personally and professionally the last few years, I expect, especially if it was back here at a place where he's pretty comfortable, a guy that just is on a mission to reestablish himself as, the guy we all thought he was going to turn into based on his first few seasons in the league. And it was interesting to hear Mike, and again, we'll talk about this with Mike in a few minutes. But I believe it was Mike in the piece that he and Ken had in the Free Press on this topic, said that they had a feeling that both parties wishes that maybe things had been handled a little differently. Laine on one side, but also the Jets organization. And tell you what, getting him on the cheap with 2 years left on the deal to really reestablish himself as a player, I think is a bet worth taking. That's my opinion on it. I know some people don't feel the same way, but and you just mentioned like Trotz Watch or everything that happened with Dubois. I guarantee you one thing, Remis. If we woke up tomorrow morning, because we're having these conversations and some of the local guys are kicking it around. If we woke up tomorrow morning and Elliot Friedman threw something out, hearing that there's a realistic possibility Patrick Laine ends up back in Winnipeg, it gets to Trotz level. I'm serious, like immediately. So we will await other reporting on Patrick Laine right now. Wish him well and say there's not only an open door here in Winnipeg, there might be a damn red carpet, at least by a large percentage of the fan base, if that could happen. Mike McIntyre is coming up a little later on. We'll dive into that. We will have Bauming on the Bombers coming up as well on today's show. We will talk CFL later on, as I mentioned, with Darrin. But tomorrow, right after the program, it is time for CFL 110. I'm sure there'll be a lot of talk about the plight of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and a wild week in the CFL that saw the East go 4-0 against the West. And get this, the East 12-6 against the West this season. Been a minute since that. Of course, CFL 110 is brought to you by our friends at Garage Living Winnipeg and our great pal Pat Kanuga. Pat mentioned he's been having some great conversations with WSTers about what Garage Living Winnipeg can do to absolutely revolutionize their garage space. But they are booking into September already. So if you do want an extreme garage makeover or a minor one before winter, give Pat a call at 204-999-1234. Garage Living Winnipeg can help clear the clutter so you have a clean, organized, gorgeous space to work and hang out in. Maybe have the guys over for the big game. They specialize in durable polyaspartic floor coatings, premium made-in-Canada metal cabinets, slat wall, and overhead storage solutions for a functional garage that looks amazing and adds value to your home. Give Pat a call for a free in-garage consultation at 204-999-1234. And whether it's a single, double, triple garage, or a 10-car garage mahal, Pat can come up with a design to meet your needs within your budget. Check out their work online. It is phenomenal stuff. GarageLiving.com. Garage Living Winnipeg. Garages made for living. Huge shout out to our pals down at Rollies, who are busy right now as they continue to move Winnipeggers to new destinations. They're doing it into their 7th decade. Family owned and operated for over 60 years, is the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. And with their extensive logistics business, they are all over the city and the province on a daily basis, which means flexible routes, timing, and a bottom line, great rates for your next move as the Rollies team gives you the white glove treatment. If you are planning a move, check out their website at rollies.com. Click on that request a quote or request an estimate. Just let them know where and when you're moving, what you're moving, and they will turn it around with a quick quote. And by the way, when you do that, WSTers, mention you're a listener and mention the promo code WST for an exclusive discount on moving rates and moving supplies. Tell them Huss sent you and that promo code WST, and we'll give you an even better rate on the already great rates from our friends at Rollies. Again, for your next move, use the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba, Rollies. Rollies.com for more information or to request a quote today. A huge thank you to the gang at Consolidated Supply. They are the irrigation leaders. And man, there's been some need for irrigation supplies and solutions this year, considering the summer, or at least the first couple months of summer that we've had. They've also got, if you're sick and tired of mowing a lawn and you want to put that dream putting green in the backyard, they've got you covered with artificial turf. And of course, Golf Carts is the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba, both new and used, and accessories for your golf cart. They've also got other great options for your property, including hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchens. And they are the leaders in small engine parts and repair. Pop by Consolidated Supply. Check them out at their showroom, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East. And you can find out more online at cte.ca. And of course, you need batteries for all these fun things you're going to be doing on August long weekend. You're getting in a boat. You're going to be, on an ATV, camping, and more. Batteries for everything at the best prices in town at Manitoba Battery, allowing you to shop local, beat the pants off the big box stores when it comes to price, and get the best service in town. Whether you're popping in to see them at their original store on Logan Avenue or the new one at 452 Dovercourt Drive, Manitoba Battery's ready for you. You'll be able to shop local. And hey, if you are busy, which many of us are, give them a call or order online at Manitoba Battery today, and they will deliver it to you for free with any purchase over $60 inside the perimeter of Winnipeg. It's just that easy. Shout out to Donnie and his great staff. Appreciate the support for all your battery needs. Hit them up at manitobabattery.com. All right, Mike McIntyre coming up a little bit later on. Just before we got on, got a chance to catch up with our pal Alex Adams on another great game for Canada in men's basketball at the Olympic Games, and a little women's soccer, a little rugby, and more. Let's welcome in Alex to Winnipeg Sports Talk. Alex, welcome back to WST. How are you?
It's good. I feel like I've missed you guys. I need to feel a little taste of home with you guys. So I appreciate you having me on, and excited to talk the Olympics. It's been a crazy couple days.
Always love chopping it up with you. And listen, the timing didn't work out with your travel. Really loved your coverage of the pre-tournament events with that Canada-USA game down in Vegas. I mean, for basketball, there's a lot of hockey fans that can think of, 2010 in Vancouver. It's been a minute since we've had truly the best on best. But that Vegas exhibition was like a who's who of it was like the NBA Finals.
I walk in. I'm going to UNLV for the first USA practice, and I'm walking up and I see Carmelo Anthony and his kid, and then we're waiting in line, and guess who is? We're delayed by guess who? Kamala Harris. And this was before she was running for president. And then there was like a who's who, like you get into the gym and it's like Steph Curry, LeBron on one side, Joel Embiid flopping on the other side, and everything. And then at the game, Obama was there, and like I met Shams. Like it was just like I don't know what it would be like the comparable, but it must be almost like an NHL draft, but even more maybe fanfare and celebrity status. But it was pretty cool, and it was a really fun experience.
Well, you got a game into it too, and of course, I mean, not that it really mattered, but Canada lost that one. They're pining for another shot at the gold medal favorite USA. This morning, Canada beat Australia 2-0 on the tournament. I'll be honest, we talked a lot about Jamal Murray. We talked a lot about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Seems like RJ Barrett's been the man so far for Canada through 2 games.
He has. I mean, I can't say that he's been better than Shai. That might be a bit too strong, but he's definitely been the Robin of Shai being the Batman, and he's been unbelievable, super efficient, gets to his spots. He likes to draw fouls. He loves just to like body himself into a bunch of defenders and just go up with his left hand off the glass, and he's been just everything that you could ask for, right? And you know, he's been making the 3-ball, which is a big thing for him. If he makes those threes, kind of the rest of his game comes together. So he's been unbelievable, and he's led Canada in points in the first 2 games, even though it's felt like Shai's taken over. He's actually he's the quiet assassin to Shai's, superstardom.
You know, I like many Canadians sweated through the Greece game on the weekend. And I mean, it looks like it was, comfortably in hand. Dort gets into foul trouble. Dylan Brooks gets into foul trouble. And all of a sudden, a 12-point lead gets down to 2, and everyone's freaking out. Shai then stepping up with that massive basket and getting it done. But what have the takeaways been so far from Canada's performance? I mean, they were favored in both games. They have won both games. They've got the Spaniards coming up and with the opportunity to win the group. But, I mean, so far, how are we feeling about the performance, knowing that the competition and the opposition is going to continue to increase as they move towards their goal?
I think they're bending but not breaking, right? They're getting pushed. They're getting tested. Like even today, Shai gets 2 fouls in the first 2 minutes, and Canada weathers the storm with Andrew Nembhard. I think their offense has looked really good. Their defense is the part of their game that if they can kind of ratchet it up a little bit, they did that in the second half today, where they put Lou Dort on Josh Giddey, and he just stole the ball from him and just would run down the court. And I think that's where this team is at, where you kind of see the pieces coming together, especially Jamal Murray, who I thought was 4 in the first game against Greece, and I thought he was a bit better today. So I think they're getting pushed, but they're playing better each of the first 2 games, and that's a really good sign. They're going to play Spain in the next game, which is no slouch, but they should win that game. So I think if you're heading into the tournament and you said, okay, Canada, you want them to get a medal, maybe even a gold medal, make the finals, I think you think about the first 2 games, and you're like, oh, this is what I wanted, this is what I expected, and it's been good tests for them, and I think they're right where they want to be.
You mentioned Murray, and Murray has been a little quieter than I think we'd like. We all know how he raises his level of game when the stakes are highest. But you mentioned Nembhard. Would be far less a household name than most of the Canadian NBAers on the club. I thought he was a huge part of the Greece win early on, and contributed in with another 23 minutes on the court today.
Yeah, he really steadied the ship when Shai went out today, right? He came in 2 minutes into the game, which was not expected. And he just would find like Trey Lyles for a layup, made a couple shots, just facilitated the offense, kept the ball moving. And, Canada was down by 2 after the first quarter, but the fact that they were only down 2 without Shai for the whole time, it was really a testament. And I think he and Jamal Murray, you're seeing a little bit more chemistry between them off the bench. I think they work well off together, where Nembhard kind of starts the offense, and Jamal Murray will then kind of, get kind of the loose change. And if something doesn't work out, the ball will kick out to Jamal to maybe make something happen at the end of a possession. So overall, I think that's the thing that this team has, is it's just so deep, especially at the guards and the wings. and you've seen that so far. The reason why they're winning is because their guard play is really, really good. The fact that they have
This is on a gold medal right now for Canada. And next matchup against Spain. Spain coming in, I was reading, I think they were ranked number 2 in the world. Now, I know FIFA rankings are sort of iffy depending on who's playing and whatnot. But, they lost that first game to Australia. So it's pretty simple for Canada. Win this game and win the group. Talk to us about the significance of winning the group in the perspective of what comes next and winning the gold medal, and frankly, trying to avoid the United States to the gold medal game if possible.
Yeah, it's huge. If they win, of course they make it to the next round. They haven't mathematically made it, but depending on some results today, if France and Germany win today, they'll actually clinch a spot in the quarterfinals. But essentially, the ramifications for Canada winning the group and you really wanting to beat Spain and also beat them by as many points as possible is because the quarterfinals is not like first team in Group A plays second team in Group B. They get rearranged in terms of reseeded in terms of how many games you win, your point differential. It all comes into place. So right now, the USA is probably going to beat everyone by 30, 40 points in their group, and they'll probably be the 1 seed. And if Canada wins their group, they'll be either the 2 or 3 seed. And that will mean that they'll avoid them going into the gold medal, hopefully, if they are to make it that far. So you get to avoid the USA. You get a favorable matchup. If they were to lose, there's actually a possibility that against Spain that they could come 3rd in the group, and then they could even play the US or a really good team that you don't want to play in the quarterfinals. So just win, baby. That's it for Canada. And I think they're in a really good spot because I think Spain is not the Spain of old with the Gasol brothers knocking down, the rim. This team is still really good, but Canada should beat them. And I think Australia was the biggest test in this group, and they passed it with flying colors.
I paying close attention to the betting odds going into this event. Obviously, the USA was a huge favorite, and then it was Canada and France that were very close. Canada was like maybe just slightly ranked higher. Maybe that's because it was a book that was doing business in Canada. Regardless, do you see those two teams as the biggest threat to the United States? And assuming that we're devoid of any massive upsets involving Canada or France, are these teams on a collision course for a semifinal matchup?
I don't know. I think France has been really interesting. They're playing Japan. Last time I checked the score, they were losing to Japan, who's not a great team. Like, they're not terrible. I think France, Serbia, and Germany and Australia are probably the other teams that you would put in that same group with Canada as teams that could potentially upset the US. So I definitely think that France would be pretty tough, but Canada played them in a pre-tournament game and they wiped the floor with them. Dylan Brooks was really good on Victor Wembanyama, and I just don't think that France team is as good as previous ones, but they do have Victor, who scares the living hell out of anyone when you see him on the court, and he's taking step-back threes as a 7'4" guy. So that's not fun, and Canada kind of saw that in the Greece game where Giannis was so dominant that it made it a game when it shouldn't have been, right? And I think that's the worry with a team like France, especially also on home court. But I think for Canada, a team like Germany, a team like Serbia, those are teams that I don't think Canada would match up well, especially like Jokic. Germany has a bunch of size too. So those are teams that I don't want to see in the quarterfinals. And for me, I think getting that hopefully 2 or 3 seed heading into the quarters, you maybe play a 3rd place team that isn't as strong, and hopefully that you get a kind of easier quarterfinal matchup, and then you can go into the semis and hopefully have a good chance, and then you're in the final with the US. And man, wouldn't a lot of people want to watch Dylan Brooks go at LeBron James? I know I would. So
Dylan Brooks is
crossed.
A guy that, when you watch the NBA, you're like, God, I can't stand this guy. And then all of a sudden he puts on the Canadian jersey and you're like, this is our guy, giving him a hard time. And he is, I had Kirby Shep on, who coached the majority of this team as junior players for the Canadian national team, under 17, under 18. And he told a hilarious story about Dylan Brooks, saying, Dylan, like what you see is Dylan Brooks. I believe the quote was, he was a challenge to coach at times, but when the game started and you had top players on the other, he wanted that challenge, and he has been there. So the next game for Canada is on Friday, 10:15 a.m. Winnipeg time, Canada versus Spain. And after that game, we'll have some clarity as to when the quarterfinal matchups, and those are going to be going on the following Tuesday.
Yeah, I believe it's the 4th or 6th.
The 6th for the quarters. I'm looking at it right now.
And then 8th and 10th.
Yeah, and then the final, if Canada can get that far, 2:30 in the afternoon on the 10th of August. Which will be great. Actually, that'll be a weekend as well, a Saturday, so we can get max viewing for Canada. While we're talking about great Olympic stories, I'll be honest, I still have not stopped talking about Canada's win over France in the women's soccer.
Oh,
and listen,
crazy.
For people that missed it, I know there's been so much talk, and it's really unfortunate, and these athletes are dealing with so much more than they should be right now. But in the cloud and the stain that, undoubtedly the coaching staff has put on our program and Canada going into the Olympics, for that team in that situation to battle back from being down 1-0 at half and win a game as a massive underdog in regulation that they absolutely had to have, regardless of what happens against Colombia and if they can still stay alive in the rest of the tournament, that game and that matchup is going to be one of the things that I'll take away from this Olympic Games the most. I mean, hard to put into words just how special this group of women are and what they did against the host French.
I just think about the picture of Vanessa Gilles after the game, and she's on her knees and just, I don't know if she's in tears, but she's like a ball of emotion. And you saw her after the game as well. And she's from Ottawa, where I grew up, and people I know, played against her and stuff like that. And after the game, she said, we're not cheaters, and we've been up all night, and it's been such a terrible whirlwind of a week for the players. And the fact of the matter that they fought back against one of the best teams in the world against them in their home nation. Just what a performance. And I think that's something that I don't want to manifest anything, but it does feel a bit fairy tale-esque, I will say. And hopefully they beat Colombia, but just the adversity that this group has gone through, and in the past they've been fighting their federation, and then obviously they won the gold medal with all the turmoil and everything with the COVID Olympics and the US and everything. This group's been through so much, and it's just so awesome to see them kind of rise above all the turmoil. Like, I just don't know how they did it. I really don't know how they did it. And it's just a testament to that group that's been just warriors for Canada for so long.
I always love the nobody believes in us narrative and the us against the world narrative, which a lot of times are manufactured. It's not in this case. And this team, anyway, tomorrow, do not miss that, folks. Canada, Colombia. And by the way, do you have any idea? I mean, we're waiting to see. I know that Canada has appealed this decision.
At the same time, you win and you're in, right? And Colombia is actually a very good team. They have some really good players. They did really well at the Women's World Cup. They were one of the surprises. So they're no joke. At the same time, it feels inevitable. I don't know. It feels hard to see Canada losing that game, but sports are weird. But hopefully they'll. I don't know what you guys feel, but that point deduction seems way too unfair to me. Especially on the players and everything.
Oh, I'm with you 100%. I mean, you could give Bev Priestman 10 years for all I care, and the people that were involved in that. I mean, not only is it, totally against the spirit of fair play that the Olympics has, and I mean, I get it. We've heard that it's somewhat widespread in soccer. No one outside of North America really seems to care about it, to be perfectly honest with you. And there's all this hand-wringing and pearl clutching amongst some in our country about what's happened. Bottom line is that the women that represent our country and have done it so well do not deserve to be put in the position that they have been in through no doing of their own. And they're just fighting through it. They fought through it right now. And as I say, that win, and the Canadians have not been very hospitable guests to the French so far, because Canada goes in and spoils the party in the women's soccer in a game that we'll be talking about for a long time. And then there's our women's rugby sevens team, who yesterday went in as big underdogs and beat the French, shocked the French to make it to the semifinal. And then early this morning, pulled off an even bigger upset by the Aussies. I mean, I know you've got a little bit of a rugby background, but I mean, what a story this team is. And I mean, these two massive upsets to get them to the gold medal game.
It's so cool because people don't really know, or people might not know, but the Canadian women's team is really good at rugby. They made it to the World Cup final in 2014 in 15s. This is sevens. Obviously, it's just the amount of players on the field. But they won the bronze medal at Rio, and it's just so cool to see. And I think about Vanessa Gilles was crying right in victory, and Canada with their wins against France, and then earlier today against Australia, where you could just see pictures of the French and the Australians in tears. So I think there's like this little kind of sidetrack of that happening where, but it's just awesome to see that that group has done it, and they've been a really good team, like kind of in like the 5th, 6th best team in the world, and just going on a fairy tale run. And you never know. They play New Zealand. New Zealand's very, very good at rugby. Rugby for them is the equivalent of hockey here. So I don't know if we're going to win that. And I don't say that I'm an expert, but the fact of the matter is that when you beat 2 of the 3 or 4 best teams in the world, you can beat another team that's at the upper echelon of the rugby world. And they're just so fun to watch. And it's such a fun sport to watch.
Oh my God, dude, this rugby sevens. I mean, I'll be completely honest. Like many, there's still some things I don't really understand. Like
what don't you understand? I can try to help.
Well, just for instance, I mean, a couple of the penalties that happened in Australia today. I mean, I know one time the ball hit the ground, and that was they did a forward pass. When they were just desperately trying to make something happen, and that was down. But the turnovers. Being a football guy, I'm like, get the ball. That's not always the case.
No.
Bottom line is that and I'll single out 2 people. Charity Williams, who does the somersault every time she does a try. And I mean, that play early this morning in the final dying seconds of the first half, going the distance to get that try. Canada was down 12-0 as a massive underdog. All of a sudden, it's 12-7. They feel like they've got a chance. And I got to tell you, if there's one star coming out of this team, I mean, it is this Piper Logan. The wheels on her. And she was literally bent in half on that winning try this morning against the Aussies. And they've got an incredible social media game too. If some of you've seen those girls having fun. Anyways, this is what the Olympics is all about. Great performances on the biggest stage. The stage is going to get bigger in the men's basketball, and hopefully Canada will be there. But in the meantime, I'm just enjoying every day and every hour of this incredible competition. Alex, let's do this again, hopefully later on as we get closer to the gold medal game. But I know you're busy. You're covering all this. Fill people in on what content you've got cranking out over the course of the Olympics.
Yeah, I'll be just covering the men's and women's basketball team. So I'll have a podcast after each game. So I just had one earlier this morning after the Australia game. I'll have one tomorrow. Canada plays Australia in the women's tomorrow. So a lot of Australia, a lot of France between Canada and those teams and a bunch of different sports at the Olympics. And then that's basically, I'll be writing a little bit, but that's basically where you'll see me. And hopefully excited to also in the fall be still covering the Senators. So you'll see me on that beat. One day, us will have a Sens Jets final. One day. I'm speaking it into existence. So
worst case scenario, I'll get out to Ottawa. Or you can get out to the Peg for a Sens Jets game even this season, and we'll make it happen.
I'm gonna try to. I need to come to the Peg. I have too much family and friends out there, so we'll make it happen. You
got it, Alex. Thanks so much for doing this. You have a great one, and as I say, we'll touch base next week if you got some time to set up the further path as Shea and the fellas try and get a crack at LeBron in the U.S. for a gold medal.
For sure. I'll just come on and talk about why Dylan Brooks owns LeBron in 10 days from now. So thanks so much.
Let's go. Take it easy, bud.
Thanks so much for having me.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, good stuff with Alex Adams. Cannot wait for the soccer tomorrow and the hoops on Thursday, and hopefully many more matches for our Canadian squads. We're going to talk Bombers coming up with Darrin Bauming at the bottom of the hour, but big game on Thursday night. They're all big for the Bombers now after this start to the season. Princess Auto Stadium is going to be rocking. Great Thursday night action heading into the long weekend. And, of course, if you're going to the game, the place to be before the game is the Princess Auto Tailgate Zone. $5 beers, $3.50 poppin' hot dogs. You can grab a couple cold Canadian Club and ginger ales there as well. Entertainment, inflatables for the kids. It is the place to be before each and every game. And, of course, Princess Auto, founded in Winnipeg, headquartered in Winnipeg, and a huge part of our sporting scene, supporting the Bombers and all of our local teams. And, of course, Winnipeg Sports Talk as well. Pop by and see them at one of two Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West. And you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. I did mention that Canadian Club. You might pick up the tailgate zone. You can certainly get it throughout Princess Auto Stadium because, of course, Canadian Club is the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And as the North End zone gets packed and people are partying, I just hope they've stocked up on enough Canadian Club for all the Bomber fans that are going to be flooring it, getting ready for the long weekend, and hopefully seeing the Bombers get their third win of the season. And I mentioned CC and Ginger. What an awesome summer drink. You can pick that up at the game, but you can also grab it at your local beer vendor as well. Incredible drink to have in the summer. Pre-mixed cocktail in cans, ready to drink. Of course, the entire family of Canadian Club and Beam Suntory Spirits waiting for you just in time for the long weekend at your local Manitoba liquor marts. One thing I know you don't want to be doing on the long weekend is building a fence. Leave that to the experts. The best in the biz since 1946, Wallace and Wallace. Gang, if your home or property needs the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter did a number on your old one, they've got you covered. Vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. Obviously, the leader throughout the city in temporary fences as well. They've got you covered. And if it's time to replace your garage door, they got Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors. Give them a call, 452-2700. The Wallace and Wallace team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. Visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kenniston. And hey, might be a few big weddings happening on the weekend. With wedding season full swing in the fall right around the corner, check on the wardrobe, guys. You go into your closet and realize you need to up your menswear game. Get on down to F Apparel right now. The leaders in men's clothing for years here in the city. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and a big sale right now on shirts. 25% off the purchase of 3 shirts right now at F Apparel, and the biggest and best selection of men's accessories around. Don't forget, if you are getting married or in a wedding party, talk to the guys at F about a 15% discount for the entire wedding party when you get your suits at F Apparel. They're at 190 Smith Street downtown. Find out more or make an appointment to come in for a fitting at F. That's EPH Apparel. All right, let's get Mike McIntyre in here. Oh, we got a lot to touch on today. You know, for such a slow time in the hockey cycle, Mike, everything else is happening. I mean, the Bombers are imploding right now and have a huge game on Thursday night. And oh my God, the Olympics, it's just been so much fun to watch.
Oh, is it ever? I'm at home right now, and I've I've got the TV on here in the background. I love everything about the Olympics, but Summer Olympics, I love the swimming. I love track. And I just love cheering on Canadians, obviously. How about the women rugby players? That was incredible. Silver medal for those who haven't been following. They just lost the final to New Zealand, but just to get to the gold medal game was a pretty incredible accomplishment. And how about the summer of Summer McIntyre she's only 17. My goodness, Huss. She may, you don't want to look too far ahead, but at 17, she's got a few Olympics still in her. She may ultimately be one of the most decorated athletes this country's ever produced. Already 2 medals.
I'd bet on it.
It looked like she was swimming a completely different race than every other competitor yesterday. In a 400-meter medley, she nearly lapped the field. That was incredible to be that much better than everybody else in the field yesterday. So yeah, I've got Olympic fever, and the only cure for Olympic fever is more Olympics. I'm enjoying it.
I think Summer, I'm just trying to pull this up. The Leon Marchand won the event, and I'm just trying to see his time. I think Summer might have won the silver in the men's.
With her time.
I'm dead serious. She was right there. And just blew the competition away. It has been so great. Listen, we'll get back to the Olympics in a minute, but let's quickly touch on the Jets beat. And we'll get to potential off-season moves in a minute. But I recall we were all down at Canada Life Center when Mike was coming, when Scott Arniel was announced. And he had mentioned that there was going to be an analytics summit or a coaches summit underway. I'm not sure whether it's specifically dealing with analytics, but it sounds like the coaches are well underway doing that right now. What do we know about what's going on this week for Arnie and his staff?
Yeah, well, we actually, Ken Wiebe and I actually were able to get quite a few details and had a great recent chat with Scott Arniel. Here's what I can tell you. This is a 4-day summit. So it's what? Is that as long as Folk Fest? Or was Folk Fest 3 days?
Yeah, it's basically Folk Fest. It's for coaches.
But as I wrote in our piece, kind of cheeky yesterday, I said there's no musical acts performing at this summit. There's no food trucks, as far as we know. No mosh pits. I don't believe they're selling merchandise.
No mushrooms.
No. But Hockey Palooza 2024, that's what I chose to call it. Hockey Palooza is well underway, and it's running over 4 days. So this is not just a 1 hour meeting that could have been an email. This is a deep dive. And in fact, Scott Arniel said there are 19 or 20 bullet point topics that they will be. So analytics is a big one for sure. And they're spending a lot of time kind of, pulling the curtain back, if you will, on what the organization does when it comes to analytics, how they use them, how they break down the information, get it to players. I talked to a couple analytics types the other day. They said this is long overdue. The Jets have trailed behind other teams in the NHL, Haas, when it comes to analytics. And if you want a tangible example of that, look at the first round against Colorado, where I think it was Corey Maziak of the Denver Post. He did a great piece after the Avalanche had responded to that Game 1 loss in Winnipeg by rattling off 4 straight wins. The Avalanche made no secret of the fact that they used analytics as a bit of a secret weapon, and that explains why they were able to make adjustments and the Jets were not. And, history repeated itself. That's 2 straight years the Jets have taken the opening game in a playoff series, then lost 4 straight. Analytics can play a role in that. So the Jets will be looking at making that a bigger part of what they do. But there's a lot of other things. Scott Arniel said that they will be looking at obviously setting the training camp plan, special teams, And I think a lot of Jets fans will be happy to hear that they will be doing a lot of work on special teams. Those were both penalty kill, power play, big areas of weakness last year. The Jets need to be better. Video usage, media relations. Apparently Scott Brown is going to be doing a presentation about media relations. And so there's a lot of things they're doing. It's obviously behind closed doors, but we kind of make fun of it, comparing it to summer festivals. But the bottom line is this is actually, I think it's a really good step for the Jets. People may forget, and if you just read social media sometimes, you would be hard-pressed to remember that the Jets had 110 points and finished fourth in the NHL last year, but they did. The playoff exit obviously left a bitter taste, and maybe the lack of summer activity when it comes to signings or big trades. We talk about recency bias. I think there's a feeling amongst some out there, maybe it's just the vocal minority, that things are bleaker than they actually are. I'll say this. I think the organization remains in a pretty good spot. Are they in the same spot they were down the stretch last year with the roster? No, but there are opportunities that will present themselves. And I think, in the modern sports game, if you're not looking for any and all kind of advantages or edges or improvements, you're probably going backwards. So good on the Jets, good on Scott Arniel for doing this. And obviously, we won't be able to make any conclusions on whether this was worthwhile until the season gets underway in a few months. But I think it's a good step for the organization. Yeah,
and I think it's important for a new coaching staff to get together with new guys. I mean, familiarize themselves with each other. Not that wouldn't have been done through the interview process when the guys got the jobs, but a clarity of roles moving forward. I mean, just to be as prepared as possible for a very important season for the team, but also for every one of those guys. Scott Arniel in particular. I mean, he's getting his second chance to be an NHL head coach. It's been received very positively by the guys within the dressing room, which is certainly important. But again, this is a results-based business, and you're taking over a team that had 110 points. Expectations will be high. And listen, I'm not sure what people are expecting. I mean, whether it's another 110-point season, but I think we know it would be a big disappointment if this team wasn't a playoff team next year.
Yeah.
And then once we get to the postseason, which is hilarious, we speak as if the regular season doesn't matter. I mean, like 6 months, 82 games. But in reality, it's about winning the Stanley Cup, and it's about being able to compete with those teams at the most crucial and competitive time in the year. And that, Mike, is where the Jets have fallen short the last couple of years. And I would imagine, even though a number of these guys weren't in the room, there'll be different theories on, why the Jets weren't able to compete at the level that they did with these teams in the regular season and the postseason. And the idea is to turn that around and not be better for it. I mean, much like failing in your first chance as a head coach, you learn things that hopefully make you better and more prepared to succeed later on. I think the Jets as an organization have to look at last year's playoffs in particular and learn from it and make them more prepared to do it. And I think this is just a part of that process.
It's interesting, Huss, when you look at Scott Arniel and the position he'll be in to start this season versus, say, Rick Bowness a year ago. Like, two very different coaches, obviously, but obviously two people at extremely different stages of their career. Like Rick Bowness, he wasn't coaching for his next job or even really for the next year. Like Rick Bowness,
it was an encore.
Right, exactly. It was a swan song, if you will. Whereas Scott Arniel has been waiting and waiting and waiting for this opportunity. So there's a guy, I don't know what this means or how this translates, but we talk about players who are motivated, like in things like contract years and whether you get the best out of players. I got to think, if you're Scott Arniel and the situation he's in, like if this second chance all these years later at a head coaching job doesn't go well, there's probably not going to be a third chance. So like with another team, like this may be it. So I think, when we talk about coaches playing favorites or having blind loyalties or stubbornness or whatever. Like if you're Scott Arniel, you better be open to anything and everything, with the ultimate bottom line being on ice success. That's all that matters. Whereas, again, Rick Bowness, not to say that he wasn't trying to win, but there wasn't the urgency, or some may even call it desperation, that I suspect is going to be there for Scott Arniel. And I think that could serve the Jets really well. Like, at the end of the day, the only barometer for Scott Arniel should be every single game, who gives me the best chance to win. I don't care about loyalty. I don't care about, past performance or who played where with who. All I care about is winning this game and then the next game. And so if you have a coach in that position, I got to think there's potentially an advantage to that. And that's where this summer summit, to get everyone on the same page, make sure they're coming into training camp kind of ready to go. I think it's a great thing.
Mike McIntyre with us from the Winnipeg Free Press on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Staying with the Jets, we have had some interesting conversations over the last few weeks about, the prospect of Patrik Laine potentially coming back to Winnipeg. Now, these conversations are legitimate conversations now because he's out of the NHLPA Player Assistance Program. I talked to Kenny on Friday, and we put that out as a standalone. And let's just say that there's traction on that piece, unlike anything we've talked about in a while.
Yes.
Where are you at on all of this? Does it make sense for the Winnipeg Jets? Is it realistic that the organization would be in and the player would be in? And, do you think that it would be worthwhile for the Winnipeg Jets to somewhat buy low on Patrik Laine and allow him to come back to where he had his greatest success in the National Hockey League and try and reestablish himself as a real difference maker in the league?
I sure do. And I know Kenny, I think, what was his percentage estimate? 10 to 15? Us?
Not sure if we got into numbers, to be honest with you.
I thought I saw somewhere he's at. Anyways, I would put it a little higher than that. I mean, I would think, like, strictly from an on-ice perspective, as you said, best years came here. This is still a player who I know, obviously last year, wasn't a very good year because it never really got going. But this is a guy who is still basically a point per game player on a pretty crummy Columbus team. The shot is still there. The power play, we talked about the power play and what the Jets need to do. I mean, the boost that he alone would provide to the power. Like, to me, there's a whole bunch of on-ice boxes that would be checked off here. But the off-ice boxes, to me, if you're True North and the Jets and you're trying to generate excitement in this market, you're trying to sell tickets in this market, Patrik Laine, pretty much more than any other player, and I mean, you're not going out and getting Connor McDavid in a trade or whatever. Like, there's a very short list of needle movers, and you talked about it with your segment. I mean, Kenny and I, our most recent mailbag we did on the weekend, kind of led with a Laine question. Again, just his name in the headline. I was looking at the online metrics for our mailbag. It's like doing numbers, bigger than anything in quite some time. He is a name. Can market him. He obviously has that rich history with Winnipeg. So to me, I mean, if I'm the Jets, I'm doing everything I can to see what it would take. And, reports out of Columbus, Huss, and I think this is realistic. The Blue Jackets aren't looking for, NHL level talent. They're trying to get out from under his salary. They're trying to do right by Patrik Laine. But the salary relief, and even if they have to eat some salary, they're moving on without him. So, there's reports that they're looking for a prospect and a pick or something. To me, these are prices the Jets can absolutely pay and should be willing to pay. If you're having to swallow his whole $8 million and change, I think it is, obviously that's a bit of a different story. But if Columbus is truly willing to eat some of that salary, and again, this is not a long-term risk. This is not the Washington Capitals trading for PL Dubois and taking on 7 more years of a player with a very spotty track record that red flags and alarm bells should. He's only signed for 2 more years. Like, even if Patrick Laine doesn't have it anymore, like he's not the player, and even if with some salary retention, you don't necessarily get the full value on ice at that number, my goodness, the on ice, the intangibles, to me, would quickly make that a contract worth taking on. And I can't think of many other markets in the NHL that could benefit the way Winnipeg could benefit from a reunion with Patrick Laine.
Yeah,
the Montreal Canadiens don't need Patrick Laine to move merchandise and tickets in their market. They sell themselves. No, they're the Habs.
But listen, to me, that's all a nice bonus. And listen, it matters. Sure. It matters. Don't get me wrong. I don't think they're making any trades because it's going to help them put a few more asses in seats. I think they're doing it if they think that they can help the club. And it's all in the bigger picture. And I've echoed exactly what you've said. You're buying low on a player that you have seen himself star and be a huge difference maker for you. There's 2 years left on this deal. Let's think about what this young man's been through for the last couple of years. He's coming back looking to resuscitate his career.
Correct.
He's got 2 years to reestablish himself. Like, we want to talk about the lack of motivation that PLD had in LA. It will be the exact opposite.
Yeah.
If Laine were to get back on the ice with the Winnipeg Jets. And the other thing, and I'm not sure whether this was you or Ken in the piece, but I think it's a very great point. Like, I'm sure there's some regrets from Patrick and his side as to the way things went down in Winnipeg. I have no doubt there's regrets on the Jets side of things. And if you can come back to a point where you're really giving him a fresh start with a motivated guy that feels like he has something to prove, has a good attitude, and is coming in and wants to be here, I mean, that's the scenario that you would love to have regardless of what the guy's name was right now and how many tickets he sells. So,
yeah.
I mean, to me, and the funny thing is, you mentioned like what he brings to the team. I would be shocked. Like, put it this way. If I'm Davis Payne, when they're doing their breakaway sessions and we get to the power play, the first thing I'd be asking is, any smoke to this business about 29 potentially being back here? Because he immediately helps that power play. And I think he's got so much left to give. I think he'll be so motivated to show that he can do it. And I'll tell you what, if this is the landing spot where he comes back and finds himself again, I think it sets the table maybe for a longer relationship. And again, that's down the road. But I mean, there's so many reasons to like this possibility. And I know there's a few naysayers that are totally out on the guy. I'm not. I think he's still got a lot of great hockey in him. And I just think about what he did in Winnipeg. I mean, towards the end, if we want to talk about Laine at the end of his time here, he was one of the most impactful players and the guys that actually showed up in the St. Louis series.
Sure.
And the last damn thing he did was score an overtime winner for us in the first game of the season, and then was out for a week and then was on the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, and I mean, talked about analytics. The analytics on Patrick Laine have actually improved significantly over the last couple of years. You talk about what he does away from the puck, defensively. Like, he's become a better all-around player. And yeah, I mean, he's got that generational shot, which I'm trying to picture at the coaches summit. You know, maybe they're like, okay, Davis, it's time for you to do your presentation. Why don't you show us some video on what you envision for the power play? And he just hits play and it's just Patrick Laine one-timers, just a montage of Laine one-time. Davis, are you trying to tell us something here? Because you're right. I mean, like, we talk about the loss, and people still talk about Dustin Byfuglien's loss on the blue line and how he could do things that no Jet before or after him can do. The same applies for Patrick Laine. And he's not just a one-trick pony. A lot of people kind of label him with that. But he does have one very special trick. And when he's on, and he's a player, Huss. He's a very emotional player. You know that. I think that's part of his charm, but it's also part of maybe what makes him human and fallible and maybe has led to some issues. But my goodness, when he's feeling it, and I got to think part of what Laine and his agent have to be looking for right now this summer is a fit where he is going to be feeling it. And, you know, I got to think a place like Winnipeg, which I know still he holds near and dear to him, and vice versa. It was a mutually beneficial relationship, as brief as it was. And I'm all for trying to find a way to resurrect it. Does it mean it happens? No. But I got to think if you're the Jets and if you're Laine and his agent, you got to be at least exploring the possibility. And so we wait and see. And now that he's out of the program as of last week, it certainly opens the door for some movement here. And I have to think, Huss, like, what are we, about 7 weeks away from training camp?
If that, if you can believe that, probably 6.
So, I mean, we're about to turn the page to August, and the Jets will be playing preseason games start kind of the last week of September. So, you know, I have to think there's got to be a desire to get this done sooner rather than later. Wherever he moves, you know, you want to obviously allow time for the player to get settled in that market and whatnot. So I just don't see this like dragging all the way out, like into training camp. I got to think in these next few weeks, there's going to be some finality here one way or another.
I also really wonder, I wonder, we were talked about it a little earlier about Nikolai Ehlers' situation right now. I mean, you know, we heard that clip from Frank on what allegedly the Jets were throwing on the table, potentially looking at Nakash. I mean, the way that was put out, I would be stunned if that was a package that was all of those together at one to maybe pieces of others.
Well, let me just
the fact
jump in.
That Ehlers wasn't there, that they were talking about, I think maybe says something. And I do wonder what a return of Laine might do with the prospect of keeping Ehlers around here longer. But what were you going to mention about that scuttlebutt?
Yeah, so I'm not looking to undercut any of Frank's reporting. I just think what was put out yesterday, I guess it was, I don't think that's the full picture of what those discussions were. I think there was another piece to that would have been coming Winnipeg's way. One of the things we heard, Huss, is that these discussions may have happened before free agency, and perhaps the rights to like Brady Shea, where he ended up signing with Nashville, I believe, right? That could have been involved in that, because when you look like the way it just was thrown out with just Natchez for all of that,
people would have rioted here if that was the
deal.
So,
but let me just caught that there's no chance. That was not the whole deal that was discussed. There would have been more to it from the Carolina side, but obviously it didn't happen. And Natchez is now re-signed as of yesterday, although a 2-year deal, which just kind of kicks the issue down the road a little bit further. But yeah, I believe there was more to it. But it is interesting that Ehlers, because I think all along we thought, okay, the whole Natchez thing and the talks, like Ehlers would be the one going the other way. I do wonder where Nikolai Ehlers would factor in if Patrik Laine were to be brought back. On one hand, I've heard some argument that it actually might hurt their chances of re-signing him because of the salary that they would now have to take on with Laine. I've heard others suggest, well, would this open the door? What about Kyle Connor? What are you doing with him? Would you now look at trading him potentially and keeping Ehlers? Like, there's lots of ways this could play out. One thing, I mean, if they were to take on Laine, even with some salary being eaten, it likely would require some other move. Now, that's where, you know, a guy like Alex Iafallo, like, could you move that to clear some space? Like, there's potential other dominoes that would have to fall. But yeah.
Well, here's the one thing on contracts right now. And I'd sort of put this up if, you know, instead of eating salary for Columbus, you know, if they would take a player that's making $6 million, for instance, like if Pionk went the other way,
right,
and they pay him for 1 year, he works with some of the young defensemen, and then is off the books at the end of next season. There's a number of contracts that are off the books next season for the Winnipeg Jets. Can they hack 875, I think it is right now, in its entirety? No. But if there's some give and take as to what comes back, the ability to take it on the next year there certainly is a lot more just because of the players like Anaya Fallow with $4 million coming off the books. So there's certainly many ways to chop it up and make it a possibility. As to how it all shakes out, we'll wait to see. Mike, we mentioned the Olympics right off the bat. You had the opportunity to chat to Desiree Scott. And I have been, certainly anyone that might be borderline sick of me talking about that win over France by the women on the weekend, but I could not. It was as impressive, as gutsy a win by a team I can remember in any sport.
Agreed.
Considering the circumstances. And I thought a lot about Desiree Scott being there in the middle of it, not playing right now, as a reserve right now for the club, added late. But just having her around there as a leader, as a veteran, what an incredible roller coaster for these women. And just for folks that missed it, tell us a little bit about your talk with Des and what she and her teammates have been through right now on the verge of doing what everyone thought was impossible when FIFA leveled that 6-point penalty.
Yeah, as incredible as it is, having essentially 2 wins taken away. If they beat Colombia tomorrow, they're in. They're into the quarterfinal stage, and then they're just a win away from being guaranteed to have a shot at a medal. Desiree Scott, for those who, she was part of the team in that won bronze in 2012, that won bronze in 2016, that won gold in 2021. But it looked like she wasn't going to be a part of this roster. She was left off it when it was announced just at the beginning of this month. But then an injury to a teammate opened up a spot on the training side of things, and as an alternate, essentially. So she's there as insurance, but she's, of course, immersed with the team, does all the usual stuff except take the pitch when the game begins. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to pick her brain a bit about just what this roller coaster ride has been like. And, she had a couple really interesting quotes yesterday. She said, quote, "I believe things happen for a reason. And in a sense, I was meant to be here amongst the storm." And she went on to describe the storm, sleepless nights, so many tears, the discovery of this Spygate, if you will, or Dronegate, having their coaches, torn away from them, having the sanctions come down, and then having to collect themselves and go beat the number 2 team in the world, France, in their, a home game for France, and to do it, to come from behind, to fall behind early, to tie it, and then to win it with essentially 90 seconds left in injury time, where a draw would have eliminated them. Like, you could feel the absolute urgency just through the television watching that game. And for them to capitalize the way they did, Desiree Scott said that she believes they've done the country proud, and I would agree with her. They have. The athletes, as she reiterated to me, they had no idea this was going on. They don't deserve to be punished individually or collectively. And thankfully that they were still given, I guess, enough rope here to be able to do what seemed like the impossible. And so, as she told me, they're fueled by anger, but also a determination to kind of overcome what are seemingly insurmountable odds. And it's just a great story. Like, it's everything about the human spirit and what we love about sports and competitiveness. And, Desiree Scott, she's 36. She's obviously been around a long time. There's a lot of really young players on this Canadian team that, as she said, kind of wearing their emotions on their sleeves. She's there to kind of calm everyone down, be, the sage, wise voice. And so, although she's not playing a role on the pitch, she's certainly playing an important role off the field. And the sense I got from Desiree Scott yesterday is the Winnipegger is taking great pride in what this reduced but all important role is for her.
Well, bring on the Colombians tomorrow and hopefully bring on the playoffs. Just for people that are wondering, that appeal is being heard today.
Yes.
And the
decision tomorrow, apparently.
Yeah, the decision tomorrow before the game. But either way, they're going to want to win, put themselves in the best position to just frankly stay alive. And that is what the France game was all about. They did it against all odds. I mean, they were a 5-1 underdog going into the game. Yeah. Never mind trailing at halftime. Listen, it's a special group of women, a special group of athletes, and it's going to be fun to watch tomorrow, 2 p.m., so we can kind of pay attention to that during the first half of WST and then move on. Hey, before we go, we got the list of the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame inductees for this year. We'll touch on them, but first and foremost, our old pal, the late, great Randy Turner. I'm sure that put a lot of smiles on everybody back at Freep HQ today.
Sure did. I just came from the induction ceremony at the Sports Hall of Fame. Matt Leibel was actually the MC of the event.
Always running things.
He is, and he runs a tight ship and did a great job with hosting duties. And yeah, he had some really nice words about Randy Turner and his days of chatting with Randy. It was great. He was talking about how they'd have Randy on 1290 and he would just have them in stitches where like nobody could get a word in with Randy because Randy was just off on like a tangent. And, you know, was a truly special guy, gone way too soon. So it was great to see Randy get inducted into the media honor roll. And then some of the athletes, Ted Irvin, a.k.a. The baby-faced assassin and the father of Chris Jericho, had a great chat. Ted Irvin was down there today, had a great chat with him about Chris. Garth Pischke's going in again, this time as part of the overall team with the University of Manitoba. And I was talking to Garth about, we've got a lot of connections here with athlete. Garth's son-in-law is Tom Wilson, of course, with the Washington Capitals. And Garth is a new grandfather. Tom and Taylor just gave birth to their first child a couple months ago. And Jen Botterill, what a great induction. We see Jen, of course, on TV and such a natural at the sort of analyst game. We forget, or maybe some people forget, what a tremendous athlete she was, like just outstanding. So she gets her recognition. A few other inductees as well. So yeah, it was a nice ceremony. They'll actually officially be inducted at their dinner November the 7th, but I'll have a piece in tomorrow's paper actually chatting shortly here with Randy Turner's dad to get his thoughts on his late son going into the Sports Hall of Fame. I'm sure, you know, all I can think of is I wish Randy were around. I would love to see his tweet about his induction, because you know Randy would have had like something just hilarious to say about going into the Hall of Fame. So I'll try and do him right by what I write today.
He had a dry, unbelievably hilarious, self-depreciating nature of his sense of humor, and it would be good.
Did.
You know what? I'm going to say this publicly for the first time while we're talking about the Sports Hall of Fame, and I will put this to you. You're a perfect person for me to throw this to, and I've been thinking about this for the better part of the last year.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. And I was wondering about how, like, do you know how the nomination process works?
So, yeah, a little bit. They said that they're like peers, colleagues. So anybody can nominate someone. And then there's a large board. Matt Leibel's actually part of the board. But there's an extensive board. And then they have meetings and they make pitches and they narrow the list down. And actually, Matt Leibel said today, we don't just take it seriously. He said, we take it too seriously, that it's a extensive process. But my understanding is it does begin with a nomination.
The reason why I bring this up is, and I'm dead serious about this, and I know that there's athletes and there's builders.
Yeah.
I want to nominate and push for the induction into the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame of Dancing Gabe Langlois.
I knew you were going to say, I was thinking you were going to say Gabe.
I've been thinking about this for a long time. And Gabe has been synonymous with our sports scene.
Yeah.
And I mean, you see him at the Jets games, at the Bombers games. He's at the Westman basketball. He's at the Fish. He's at the Sea Bears. Like, there is not one person that has not been touched in this sports community over the last 30 plus years by Dancing Gabe. And I mean, I don't know whether it's a builder, it's not an athlete, but I'll say this. I mean, it's a sports hall of fame. There is few people more famous when it comes to Manitoba sports than Gabe. And,
Correct.
you know, he looks amazing right now. I can't believe it. But I mean, he just celebrated his 60th birthday.
Oh.
And I just wanted to put that to you because, I mean, I actually feel really strongly about this. And I mean, sports is so much more than just the athletes or the coaches. And for someone that is the ultimate fan, but also someone that supported every athlete in this province for so many decades, I don't think that there could be someone outside of the incredible athletes that go in there that would be more deserving of that honor. And I'll tell you what, I would love to be there that day to see Gabe go in because he is a guy that listen, I would be surprised if there were many people that were against that. I just don't know the rules of exactly like whether that's a special category. But do you not agree that Dancing Gabe at some point, and sooner as opposed to later, considering his age right now, should find his way into that hall?
I could not agree more with you. And I would say he is a builder in his own unique way. He builds relationships between teams and fans. And he's built up a following. Like he's building prominence in all of our sports teams. And you're right. He's literally at everything. He's got the craziest schedule going in this city. So I would agree, and it's worth us looking into for sure.
So you will second my nomination
I will
when I call up John Waldman and
motion.
Leibel and those guys and get this ball rolling for next year?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
100%.
It's a deal, Mike. Thank you for the support. Gabe for HOF 2025. We're starting it right now on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Mike, great stuff as always, buddy. Thanks so much for doing this.
You bet. Enjoy the week. Stay cool.
Now we're going to talk Bombers. So,
yikes.
Darrin Bauming coming up with us in just a second. I'm just looking at the chat. And you know what? Listen, this is why you're such great people here. Loving the support for that idea from Running Man, Derek Schmidt, Schickster. You know, there is, Gabe's a no doubter. I agree. And again, it's a unique nomination because, I mean, again, the builders are more the people that are involved in the administration or ownership or those sort of things of teams. Obviously, you've got coaches, you've got athletes, but when you talk sports in this city for my lifetime, and I'm not a spring chicken anymore, Dancing Gabe at the top of the list, and Mr. Langlois deserves that. So that's a project that we will spearhead on Winnipeg Sports Talk for the next year. But congratulations to all the nominees. We'll look forward to having them on WST over the next little bit. Bombing's coming up. Beautiful outside. It's a heater outside today. Great time to spend time outside and get down to the beer can for the best selection of local beers in Winnipeg. Some delicious frozen drinks and cocktails. And, of course, the amazing food by the fellas from the Cosmos Food Cantina. Just over the Osborne Bridge, beside the Granite Curling Club is the beer can. If you haven't been there yet, you're missing out. Get on down there over the course of these next few days with this beautiful summer weather. And, of course, the food at the beer can by the Cosmos guys. They're also cranking out the biggest, baddest, wildest sandwiches in town at Hoagie Boys on South Osborne, as well as next door in the heart of Wolseley at 116 Sherbrooke next to Good Neighbor Brewing. Tomorrow, Wingy Wednesday. For you wing lovers, it is a must-try. $15 for a pound of wings, and they roll out the sauce cart with 14 homemade sauces that you can mix and match. That's at next door tomorrow, but it's looking outside. It's feeling like a beer can night. Big Bomber game. We're going to talk about it right now with Bauming. If you need to re-up on your Blue Bomber gear, maybe potentially get an 88 Rasheed Bailey jersey. We'll ask Darrin about what's going on with that in a minute. Royal Sports is the spot. 750 Pembina Highway. NFL, Major League Baseball merchandise, Jets, Bombers, international soccer, tons of Canada gear for the Olympics. And, of course, soccer, baseball, softball, running, tennis, disc golf, bikes. It is all there. Make the most of summer and pop by Royal Sports at 750 Pembina Highway. and follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And of course, Thursday night kicks off the CFL schedule. 4 games right through Saturday. If you're looking to get out of the heat, into some AC and watch the big game, watch the Olympics, do it at your local Boston Pizza, along with some ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and more. And if you're staying at home, you can always get the great taste of BP by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right, let's talk Bombers and welcome in the Bomber himself, Darrin Bauming of Bonfire Sports. DB, what's going on? How are you?
Haas, I was just checking my inbox and I'm seeing these comments from fans talking about this Labor Day bus trip. There's the Huss bus and there's the Bomb bus, the Bonfire bus. And they're saying that you and I should stage a cage match to see which bus reigns supreme. I don't know how you feel about that.
I don't know about a cage match. I mean, we can maybe do a boat race or something on, or something
Marbles?
like that. We'll do some sort of a beer Olympics. How about that with everybody involved?
Let's go.
Listen, I'm totally looking forward to that. We had Bannon on the program on Friday.
Yeah.
But yes, for you Bomber fans that have not yet made plans for the Banjo Bowl, the Labor Day Classic, the game is sold out. We have the best crew of people, of organizers coming together. So do not wait. Get on it. It's the 1930 crew on Insta, on Twitter, Facebook. You can contact them there, or just simply send an email to @the1930crew@gmail.com. Grab some of those last few seats and join us for what should be an incredible weekend. And dude, I mean, the Labor Day Classic is always really fun. I mean, it's the biggest party of the year in the Canadian Football League. But man, we're going into August right now. 2 wins on the season. That might feel like a playoff game for the Bombers at the rate that they're going. I mean, this, let's go back to Saturday. I know you broke it down very well on the game afterwards at Bonfire After Dark after the game. But I mean, we're 3-4 days removed from it, and I still have a hard time wrapping my head around how the Bombers lost that football game, a game that they dominated completely. Toronto did nothing offensively. They gave up 6 points on defense, and they're 2-6, staring down a BC team coming off a bye on a short week on Thursday. It's this is getting urgent right now for Winnipeg.
Getting kind of hectic. Yeah. That 90s hip hop song that I definitely grew up. It's definitely getting kind of hectic. Normally these games, Hustler, so the Bombers lose a second in a row, drop to 2-6, as you mentioned. And it's like, well, okay, that penalty call, that missed call, that coaching decision, that missed field goal, it's like 1 or 2 things. There is myriad reasons, myriad events, moments, coin flips, 50-50 moments in that game where you could say confirmatively that if it went the other way, you may have a different result, or you would have a different result.
Just one of them.
Just one of them. Castillo's field goal misses. The 5 turnovers, a double tipped ball is Zach Collaros' only interception.
Pick 6.
Yeah, a pick 6, and it would have been a different story. The decision for Chris Streveler to go for it on third and short, when they were well within field goal range and there was just under a minute remaining. And Mike O'Shea has talked about it on his coach's show, some of those decisions. What stood out to me is that after the game, I read that O'Shea said he got greedy, deciding to go for it with Chris Streveler. Yeah.
That shocked me. I said to the guys I was watching it, I mean, they have to go for it here. And I thought that it would be I think I called it a chicken shit move if they would have gone and kicked that. I mean, allowing Toronto to get the ball back.
You're 100% this season in those situations.
Get that first down, they win the game. And for the record, I thought he got it. I mean,
100% he got it. Yes. It's like they spotted the ball because they couldn't see the ball. Often, I think officials will spot the ball where the belly of the ball carrier is. Chris Streveler, you could see it on the one video review. He had the ball high and tight next to his shoulder, and he most definitely got to the 21-yard line. Most definitely broke the plane to pick up a first down. But I guess the official on the other side of the field got final call, and they marked him short. Just about that much. But, I mean, so many things in that game went wrong, and when it comes down to it, I mean, okay, let's say the Blue Bombers eked out a win. Would there be a little bit more hope in Bomberland right now? Sure. They'd be like, okay, we've won 3 of our past 4 games, and we'd be able to, go in to this game on Thursday against the BC Lions with a little bit of momentum. But even still, this team is playing nowhere near their potential, and they're playing nowhere near well enough. The offensive line, in my mind, is the one area that has struggled more than any other all season long. I think that has led to Zach Collaros getting hurried, making some rash decisions, not playing his best football through the first quarter first third of the season. Now we're almost reaching the midway point as far as the entire CFL schedule. Of course, Winnipeg still has 3 bye weeks, so they've played a whole bunch of these games and haven't had much rest at all. Special teams has gotten better. I thought they were outstanding in containing Janarian Grant and keeping him from inking himself above the rest in the CFL record books as he came into the game having a touchdown return in 3 straight games. Or would have put him ahead of Chris Williams of the Ticats from a handful of years ago, and Gizmo of the Edmonton Eskimos, of generations gone by. And they did a great job containing him, a big X factor for the Argos. The defense I thought was outstanding. They for a team in the Argos that doesn't really have an identity on offense right now, maybe it's Kadeem Carey, but they go back and forth between Cameron Dukes and Nick Arbuckle. Dukes, young, inexperienced, inconsistent. Arbuckle, veteran, and just as inconsistent. So the fact that they got, 205 net yards of offense, the Argos, and Winnipeg did a really good job just containing them. I mean, the biggest score the Argos had in that game was a pick 6 on that double tip ball we talked about. But offensively, I mean, Brady is number 2 in CFL rushing yards. It's like the offensive line is very good moving forward. And I mean that literally. Run blocking, pushing forward. They're pretty good. But dropping back and protecting in pass coverage, they're getting cooked all night. Pat Neufeld was in, getting cooked by Jake Serezna, allowing sacks against, allowing Collaros to get hurried. They put in Tui Ellie. Jake Serezna is like no difference for me, still getting to the quarterback and helping Woody Barron get home. And that D-line was playing maybe one of their best football games of the year, or they were up against a weak offensive line. The Blue Bombers' offensive line is nowhere near good enough right now, Hustler. And it's amazing when you think about this rise to success under head coach Mike O'Shea, general manager Kyle Walters, the acquisition of Zach Collaros late in 2019, but how easily we forget that it was the offensive line, that strong line play that allowed all of those other things to happen, because it's not happening.
Kyle
right
Walters, when he took over
Yeah.
in the rubble of the Joe Mack era, did 2 things. Address the offensive line immediately, and I mean the Stanley Bryant signing. I'd still say Andrew Harris is probably his impact as a free agent is the biggest we've ever seen. But Bryant is right there. Yep. It was the offensive line and the Canadian talent, and this offensive line is tough. And Ben Grant's coming on tomorrow, who does color for the Argos, and I mentioned this earlier. But if Bomber fans want a little preview of that conversation, go to 3 Down. He's got a really interesting look at the Bombers this season, and it points directly at the offensive line. Like, even in a game where Zach Collaros, passing-wise, looked really good. He had over 300 yards. I think he was 25 of 32 or 25 of 33.
Yep.
He was sacked 5 times. There was that pick, and again, whatever, controversial, but I mean, to me, like, that game, they should win it 99 times out of 100. That was the 1 out of 100, and it's weird. Maybe it's like 4 years of charmed luck is coming back to bite these guys. But listen, I mean, this isn't the rookies that are putting the ball on the ground. It's Brady. It was Drew Wolodarski. It was Nick Dembski. And I mean, listen, and the Dembski one, I will defend him on the Saskatchewan play. I mean, that play by Thurman was as good of a defensive play as you will ever see. Grabbing the one side so he brings the ball around, timing the punch out perfectly. Like, every now and then, big-time players will make big-time plays. That was one of them. That wasn't everything that happened on Saturday. And, I mean, I can only think that will get better. I mean, there's no way these guys are going to consistently put it on the ground as much as they have before. And I'll tell you what, if this defense continues to play the way they have, and they've got a huge test. This is the one team that really did carve up the Bomber defense this year was BC.
Carved up a lot
better. Well, exactly. But it is an urgent thing. Let me ask you this, because we talked about the fumbles. I still will be interested to hear about Drew Wolodarski's status for this week, considering just how hellacious of a hit that was. And he obviously was knocked out of the game and didn't return. Are you as surprised as me that Rasheed Bailey's not at practice today for the Bombers?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I'm of the opinion, along with a lot of fans, and probably you too, Hustler, from what I've heard from you.
Big Sheed guy. I think he can help the team.
Who isn't
right
a
now?
Big Sheed guy? Who isn't a Big Sheed guy? How can you not be? The guy is pure energy, entertaining, and a hell of a good football player. I'm of that same opinion that energy might be the right pill right now, the shot in the arm from the doc. Because nothing is going Winnipeg's way right now. I think if you add a guy like that, it might get them those good feels of years gone by and their championship runs and all of that.
He can play too.
Yeah.
They're without a number of guys. Some of the younger receivers have been struggling. He knows the offense. He's comfortable with Zach Caleros. Yep. He's an absolute beast helping out the running game. When he got cut by Toronto, I thought he might start Saturday for us.
Yeah. Well, and you listen to Mike O'Shea, on his coach's show saying, well, it might take a week or two for Rasheed to get, back in the lineup. What we've seen from Lucky Whitehead. It's been 4 weeks since he signed with the team, and I don't know if he's going to be in the lineup this week. The only practice the Bombers held today was a closed session, so no eyes on the team, and we won't know till tomorrow and the depth chart comes out. But I don't know if Lucky's going to be in the lineup. And by the time Rasheed comes here, gets a week of practice under his belt, we might, the Bombers are going to do into a bye after this week. They're going to have 12 days off after this and get back to things on August 18th, traveling to BC. So by the time Rasheed's here, gets acclimated, all those sorts of things, it's also during a bye week where, the coaches are off, his teammates would be off. How much work can he really get in other than just reading the playbook? And then Kenny Lawler could return. That is about the timeline we've been given from the team, that it could be that game in CFL Week 11 in mid-August. Keurig Wheatfall on the 6-game injury list. He might be coming back. So, I understand the salary cap space is there. It makes all the sense in the world. I'm not holding my breath for this signing to happen, though.
Well, I'm sort of with you. I think if it was going to happen, it probably would have already happened. Now, again, we'll see what happens this week with guys getting healthy or guys getting nicked up, what happens over the course of the bye week. But count me in the camp that thinks that Rasheed Bailey would be a big positive for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers right now in a number of areas. We'll see what happens on Thursday. This is a very unfamiliar place, at least for the last 5 seasons, for the Bombers to be in. But they got to find a way to win as an underdog at home against BC coming off the bye. I know you'll have a ton of coverage tomorrow with Walby on the Bonfire pregame, and then a late Thursday night edition heading into the long weekend. Kind of nice getting into the bye week for you as well, Bomber. The
Absolutely.
Thursday night game, and then all systems go for the long weekend. Thanks again for doing this, and again, gang, Bauming, myself, a great crew. Get on board with us for the Labor Day game at the 1930 crew, or just the 1930 crew at gmail.com. Book those spots and let's do it. Have a great one, pal. We'll look forward to the show tomorrow.
You too, Huss. Hey, that bus is right around the corner, man. I can't wait. Let's go.
Good stuff. Darrin Bauming. And again, Bonfire Sports. Give him a sub if you haven't already, but you're probably a regular. You know where to go after the game when Darrin breaks it all down. All right. Gold Eyes are back in action tonight, and it is Ukrainian night. Husli, the best anthem in the game, will be performing for the 6:30 first pitch tonight. And again, Goldeyes playing some great baseball as of late, getting the split on the weekend coming out of the All-Star break, had won 6 in a row on the way there. 7-game homestand beginning tonight. The weather looks great. If you've been waiting to get out to Blue Cross Park, make this the week you do it. Goldeyes.com for tickets. Group packages as well. And of course, you can also call 982-BASE. Shout out to our friends at Aikens Lake. I am counting down just days away from getting back to Aikens Lake. And I did see, I believe it was Jay Miller, wondering if fishing will ever be in the Olympics. I would love to see our guy Gussie wear the red and white, trying to make it happen in a bass competition at the Olympic Games. But I can tell you, there's been some gold medal trophy fish coming out of Aikens Lake, and I hope to grab one on the line coming up in this weekend. If you haven't already, you're considering an unbelievable, one-of-a-kind fly-in fishing experience unlike any other, where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from Winnipeg. Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge is the spot. Check them out online at aikenslake.com for more information on any remaining availability for 2024 and already booking well into 2025. And of course, check out all their socials at Aikens Lake. And I'll hopefully be providing some great visuals myself on my Instagram and the WST Instagram coming up this weekend. Quick Breezy Bend golf report. Our guy Derek Ingram, Winnipeg's own, boots on the ground in Paris. He and his guys, Corey Connors and Nick Taylor, representing Canada at the Olympic Games. The tournament gets going on Thursday, and we'll be all over that. And a big time for Canadian golf with our Canadian men and women. Brooke Henderson, of course, competing at the Olympic Games. And then the countdown to the President's Cup in Montreal begins. If you are thinking about a great long-term home for you and your family at one of Winnipeg's top private courses, think about Breezy Bend. Give our pal Corey Johnson a call over at Breezy to find out about membership options for the 2025 season. And you can check more out on the course and the facility at breezybend.ca. Also a great spot if you're planning a wedding to have your big day. All right. No, I don't think we officially did. I know we talked about this earlier on, but this is just a quick reset of our conversation with Mike. But a very simple yes or no to everyone for the why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. If the money works and it is a reasonable price, are you in or are you out for a Patrick Laine reunion with the Winnipeg Jets with 2 years remaining on his contract? Yes or no is all I need from you. Let us know in the chat for the why not question of the day. All right, let's get Remis back in here. We do have to get to our picks coming up for the track tonight. And of course, the Coolbet Lines as well. The biggest challenge with Coolbet right now, Remo, is just keeping track of all the Olympic events and where they're coming and making sure you get in before they actually start.
Yeah, are we on Paris time here yet? I know I've learned that this is the prime time. Our show is when a lot of events are swimming taking place now. We had 2 rugby sevens matches for Team Canada. Today, basketball taking place this morning. A number of other sports, skateboarding was on. But yeah, I see a lot of swimming here as I fire up, although that's for later in the week, firing up, track and field. Cool bets. They got all of them. It's crazy what you can wager on here for Olympics.
A couple things to note. If you go over to the promotions tab, make sure you opt in on the Trip of a Lifetime contest. If you are betting at Coolbet, you'll get a raffle ticket for every $50 you bet in the sports book and every $75 on the casino. For a trip for 2 to Vegas, you'll be able to pick one of 3 or 4 weekends. It includes round-trip flights to Vegas, 3 nights in the hotel, 2 tickets to an NHL game, and 2 tickets to an NFL game. Unbelievable weekend. And again, you just have to opt in the promotion side. And if you are betting Olympics as well, there's also one to just click on the opt-in. If you bet $45 on the summer games during the week, and it can be 3 $15 bets, one $45 bet. It doesn't have to be all in one. You'll also get a $15 free bet at the end of the week to use on your favorite sport. So lots of good things cooking over in the Coolbet promotions tab. And for those of you wondering, we're having a meeting after the show today to put together details for our little EST WST Lock Shop poker tournament, which I know there was a lot of interest when we mentioned the idea originally. So we're going to set a date and figure out an action plan for that. So stay tuned for us. Today, Jays finishing up their series in Baltimore. We're going to see some big numbers on the Blue Jays the rest of these years. Although maybe we just bet Vladdy homers every day because he is absolutely on fire. But the Jays are plus 182 underdogs, minus 217 for the Orioles. That Kikuchi deal did not go over well in Houston yesterday. I was talking to Dusty about this on the Lock Shop. I saw Sean Pendergrast, who does one of the big shows in Houston. He did a poll with Astros fans as to what they thought of the Kikuchi acquisition for what they paid. Their number 5 prospect and the son of Billy Wagner. 93% hated it. So maybe Atkins and Shapiro actually pulled off a good one. Busy day today, though, in the majors. And we do have our double play. I'm on the Dodgers. Tyler Glasnow on the hill, taking on the Padres. So Dodgers to win. And the Phillies-Yankees game over 9.5. That one's got a nice little boost from plus 236 to plus 261. Now it's come down a little bit, but still a nice boost. And again, you can check out some of the other exclusives right now. And then for tomorrow, the game that we are all looking forward to, Canada versus Colombia. Canada minus 108 to win and complete the improbable 3-0 run, preventing them from being booted from the games with that penalty. Colombia plus 275 and a draw plus 275. A bunch of other games, including USA taking on Australia tomorrow. USA a big favorite, Japan, but everything for the Olympic Games is up right now. And the Olympic golf, we'll maybe get into the golf futures a little bit more tomorrow before they tee off on on Thursday. Scotty Scheffler, though, the favorite of 4-1. Xander Schauffele at 6-1. Just looking at our Canadians, Corey Connors is 40-1. And Nick Taylor, I have to go way down for Nick Taylor. Nick Taylor, 150-1. And there's been some weird things, like Xander won the gold medal last year, but if you recall, Rory Sabatini, of all people, won the silver. And then there was that 7-way playoff for the bronze medal won by C.T. Pan. So strange things can happen. I will be putting a little sprinkle on our Canadians. And again, we wish Derek Ingram and his boys well out at the Olympic Games. It's all there at Coolbet. If you haven't played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. And just quickly, CFL, Bombers are still 3.5-point underdogs at home. The Ticats are 4-point home dogs to Montreal. The Riders, apparently Trey Ford's going to be starting for the Elks. Riders 5.5-point favorites against Edmonton at home. And that Calgary number continues to creep up. It opened up at Calgary -1. It's now Calgary at -3. And if you are betting at Coolbet, take a screen cap of your bet on CFL, send it into contest at winnipegsportstalk.com, and we'll be qualifying a few more people to get marbles for a race. I guess we'll do it in the second week of August, and whoever wins is going to get a trip for two on the Huss Bus with the 1930 crew heading to Regina for Labor Day. Tickets to the game, hotel, transport there and back, some Coolbet swag, and of course some swag from the operators. So contest at winnipegsportstalk.com. Screen cap any of your CFL bets. And again, every week you'll also have one bet to add a 20% win boost in. Hopefully that's on the Bombers. Bombers plus 142 on the money line for the game on Thursday night. All right, Remo, go for you yesterday.
Not good. I didn't have a good feeling heading into it, and I was right. I was 0 for. I'm feeling good about tonight, though. I'm ready to get back on the horse for a horse pick.
All right, well, let's fire it out. Let's see. I'm starting off in race number 2 for tonight.
Okay, I think I'm also in race 2. I'm in race 2, yes.
Okay, yes. I've got a $2 exacta box of 4-7 for race number 2. By Y'all, one of my all-time favorites, and Wits 10-10. 2 go-tos for me over the last couple years. We're putting them together. They're the top 2 faves.
I'm going By Y'all to win. Just straight up winner for By Y'all.
Gotta love By Y'all. All right, race number 3. This is, again, a little chalky, but I need to get into my groove. Triactor box, McCaig, the favorite, along with Del Vecchio, and number 8, Crowned Royal.
I'm going heavy on the McCaig Del Vecchio Exacta box. I think I won on this bet a while ago. Just trying to hit some singles here after last night's golden sombrero.
All right, race number 4. I've got another triactor box. 2, Rose of Mooncoin. 3, Danzig Starstorm. And number 6, Happy Hour. $6 bet, $1 each way.
Okay, I'm not on this one. I got one more on race 5.
Okay, fire it up.
I got a Exacta box 3, 9, Lola Lee and Woke Joe.
Interesting. I got a $2 bet on number 8, Press On Baby to win. And my final bet of the night, race number 6, on number 6, Conti to win. So
Conti.
We've seen Conti do well before.
The Crazy Legs Conti, the competitive eater? Different Conti.
Not quite. Hasn't been as good as it was last year. It was a lot more competitive this year, but moving down a couple classes, maybe tonight will be the night for Conti to get the win. Again, you can watch the races if you can't get out to the track on YouTube with Kirk and Stretch, and you can always wager on our track as well as tracks around the world at hpibet.com. No live racing tomorrow on Wednesday from its normal day, and no live racing next Wednesday as well. But do not forget, the 5th, Monday, is the Manitoba Derby. They've got a mandatory payout as well on that. So we'll see if we can hook up with Darrin Dunn heading into the weekend for the latest on the Derby, the biggest race of the year, out at Assiniboia Downs. All right, that is going to do it for us. Get back to a little Olympics watching and get ready for tomorrow. We'll have the Bomber depth chart come out. We'll discuss that. And Ben Grant is going to join us. And it'll be interesting to talk to someone from out of the market that pays close attention to the CFL, who just saw the Bombers inexplicably lose that game in Toronto last week. Got a great breakdown on some of the things that are happening in Winnipeg this year. It's at 3 Down Nation. He'll join us tomorrow. And special guest, Mr. Olympics himself, the one and only Gabriel Morency, Sports Rage, coming on tomorrow. So we'll have that for you. And of course, we'll get ready for the big Canada-Columbia game in Winnipeg soccer, which will be starting midway through tomorrow's show. Appreciate everyone joining us. Tell a friend about Winnipeg Sports Talk, how they can join us on the YouTube or on the podcast. Appreciate everyone coming out today. Thanks to Bauming. Thanks to Mike McIntyre and Alex Adams and all the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen every day. Stay cool, everyone. It's a heater out there. Have a great night. And we'll see you tomorrow for another big episode, Wednesday style, for Winnipeg Sports Talk. See you then.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.